If you clicked on this video, which you have because you're watching it now, chances are you could use some tips on how to better loop killers in Dead by Daylight, or you're just bored and for some reason I popped up in your recommended feed. In either case, welcome! My name is Shmolty, and today I'm going to be schooling you in the fine art of the loop-de-loop.
You did a little loop-de-loop and pull, and your shoes all looking good.
Damn! He just slashed.
In this video, I'll be going over a few different key points to maximize your looping efficiency, movement and pathing, effective use of pallets, playing around windows, and some specific tiles you'll come across often. A tile basically being a structure that you use to loop. I went over some tips in my Honest Guide to Survivor, but I'll go into much more depth here. Let's start with movement, as it's easily the most important aspect of your gameplay. A lot of beginner survivors will sort of run around aimlessly and hope the killer gets distracted with something else eventually, but the most important thing to have when running from the killer is a plan. A plan to not only avoid getting skewered by the 9-foot tall cowboy that enjoys murder as much as you do hentai, but also perhaps more notably, to waste time. The more time the killer uses chasing you, the more progress will get done on generators without interruption, unless you lead the killer into other survivors like an asshole. Step 1 of the plan. Know your options. Before you work on a gen and essentially wait to hear a heartbeat, you should have an idea of what tiles are around you, and where you can run to evade the killer's grasp. With more knowledge and play time, this will get a lot easier, but it will always be important to mind your surroundings. Step 2 of the plan. Find the killer. It'll be much easier to know where to run if you know where the killer's coming from. Once you hear a heartbeat, start walking to an area where you have better vision so you can get a head start. If you paid attention to where that glow stick skin Nia got hooked, you should have a pretty good guess of where to start hauling some ass. Step 3 of the plan. Run.
We get smack on the ass, man.
Why? This guy's so fucking bad that he's good! Oh my god.
What, you gonna cry?
No.
No, go ahead, cry. Let me see you. Let me see you cry.
Run to the nearest pallet or window opposite the killer. Congratulations, you are now in a chase. You could also try to hide, but this video is about looping, not urban evasion. When running from the killer, it's important to look back and gauge the distance you have. You don't have to run the whole map backwards, but if you're not checking for the killer's position, you're at a severe disadvantage. They just might turn up around a corner when you thought they were behind you. The shit inside your pants aside, this is a bad situation. If you have trouble maintaining a good path while moving your camera around, practice the hell out of this. You could even run around in circles in the game's tutorial if you feel so inclined. Pallets won't save you if you can't see what's happening. Speaking of pallets, nailed that segue, how do you use these most effectively? It's important to remember that pallets are a limited resource, and once they're gone for good. Killers don't recycle. So instantly dropping the first pallet you see in a chase, then running to the next, is just wasteful. If you've got some distance on the killer and can see you'll be safely past the pallet before they can get a chance to smack you, just go on through it and start looping the structure around the pallet as tightly as you can. This is where mastering movement and keeping your eyes on the killer is of the utmost importance. If you're not ready to double back and run the opposite direction the instant the killer does, you'll be handing them a free hit. You're still planning to drop the pallet, hopefully on the killer's dome piece, but you're wasting as much time as possible before you do. Ideally, you'll drop the pallet right as the killer's about to catch up and hit you, getting the stun and time to run to your next tile. Some killers will refuse to break the pallet and go around. If you get the stun, you should still have time to get to another tile, but it can be even better to stick around until they break it. If the tile is as large as your mom got him, you simply keep running in circles around it and vault the pallet when things get dicey. Keep in mind though, the killer can read your vault and double back just at the right moment to get the hit, at least on smaller loops. You can take advantage of this by simply running up to the pallet, pretending to go for the vault, and then continuing around the loop. Oftentimes killers will double back preemptively, winning you distance and making their PP feel very small. Which if they're playing killer, it already is. Am I right, Survivor mains? No, not yet! If you do lose the Sherlock vs. Moriarty mind game war and end up taking a hit, don't panic. Whenever you get hit by the killer and aren't injured already, you get a massive speed boost, and the killer is slowed down to a crawl. Use this time to beeline it to a faraway tile. Once you get more familiar with how far the killer can lunge, you'll know pretty early on if the killer has a hit on you. If you haven't dropped the pallet, but you're pretty sure you'll get hit anyway, don't drop it. If they hit you as it drops, you'll lose a lot of your speed boost and basically waste the pallet. Just take the hit and get the fuck out of Dodge. And hey, they might even miss, giving you another free loop. You could also go for the classic 360 to avoid a hit, but a good killer won't fall for it, and you could end up a bit disoriented anyway. When it comes to playing around windows, how you loop can depend a lot on the tile as well as how the killer is chasing you, but try to always focus on the angle you vault from. There are 3 different vault speeds in Dead by Daylight: slow, medium, and fast. Slow vaulting is your sneaky vault. As long as you aren't holding sprint, you should always get this, and it won't make a sound notification for the killer. This is important to keep in mind. Anytime you vault or interact with a pallet while holding shift, the killer gets a visual and audio cue of your exact location. So if you want to be sneaky, only fast vault in a chase. Sort of a double meaning there, because when in a chase, you should do your best to always fast vault. The difference between quickly jumping a window and slowly climbing over it is all in the angle at which you approach. You have to be running directly at the window for at least a few paces to get a fast vault. If you run at a weird angle or don't get a good run-up started, you'll get a medium, which will often result in a smack on the ass either as you're climbing the window or even a bit after you've gone through it, because you don't jump as far. Note that you will always fast vault a pallet if you're holding sprint, which is a big part of what makes them so strong. If you're coming at the window at a weird angle but don't have the time to adjust your pathing, consider faking the vault. You can do this by either running out and back in, pretending to line up for the jump, or I've even managed to bait a swing by simply sliding my mouse up quickly at the window so my character looks up. Then, you simply continue around the loop. If you manage to bait the swing correctly, you could get just enough distance to evade it. But this is very situational, and a smart killer will just wait to see what you do. If you're forced to medium vault and the killer is close, they'll get a hit either way, so they have time to wait and react accordingly. Aside from map-specific structures, there are several common window tiles that you'll come across game to game. Let's start with my personal favorite, as well as the strongest, the shack. The killer shack will spawn in every outdoor map, typically in one of the corners. It has one window, as well as a god pallet with no real counterplay. If you're going to run the shack, treat this pallet like a newborn baby and don't fucking drop it. Unless you're in the endgame and gens are done, or you absolutely need it to avoid death hook. Shack often spawns near exit gates and or has a basement in it, so having that pallet to trap the killer inside can be instrumental to some escapes. This won't always be the case, and good survivors should be fine without it, but it's a good rule of thumb to play by. The window alone should be more than enough to evade the killer and potentially get away. The best way to loop the shack is by leading the killer through the doorway furthest from the window. That way you get the best lineup for the fast vault. If the killer doesn't let you run the way you want to, things should still be fine as long as you never take your eyes off them, particularly their enormous red stain that shows you where they're looking. Be sure to always line up for fast vaults, and try faking the window if you can't quite make it. A couple things I failed to mention here. So when you're looping the other side of shack, as long as you get the fast vault here, you should be fine. But occasionally killers will just double back preemptively, in which case you have to, keep your eyes on them and make sure you fake the vault so they don't win the hit there. Also, when you're coming up the long side, sometimes killers will jump in the window to try to cut you off, in which case if you catch it fast enough, you should just make the medium vault. If they have enough distance, you can go for the window fake. I obviously ate a hit here because I got stuck. I was trying to demonstrate the window fake. But you should be fine most of the time as long as you're aware of the killer's position. Next, we'll go over Tnl Walls, which are my second favorite structure to loop the killer on. These are distinguished by the shape of the 2 walls facing each other. One is a large T, the other an L. Yeah, not exactly rocket science, but important to know. In a perfect world, you use this structure as one big square, jumping through both windows easily as the killer tries to go around. However, most killers will know this and cut through the middle instead. This forces you to run outside of the loop and typically reuse the window you just vaulted. This leads to a strong mind game for the killer and forces you to make a read that's easier to demonstrate with live gameplay. So basically here the killer has 2 options when they push you this way. They can either double back at the bottom of the L like this to win the hit if you vault, or they can commit because you can always fake this vault so that if they double back you win even more distance. So that's sort of the essential mind game. Are they going to double back? Should I fake it? Or should I just commit to the vault? If you guess right, you win a lot of distance. If you guess wrong, you're getting hit. So TNLs can be very strong if you make the right reads, but they can also be a free hit for the killer if you mess up. Long wall gyms are pretty much exactly what they sound like. You have one really long boy with a window in the middle, and usually a pallet on the other side. This tile can be very difficult, as you have to master the skill of getting fast vaults at weird angles. This is done by lining up a few feet away from the window and quickly turning your camera toward it once you're at the right angle. Then you'll have to delay your vault a bit, so you press the spacebar a split second before you bump your knee into the wall. With this in mind, here's an idea of how you should be looping this tile. Okay, so this is kind of the way you want to be starting if you can. And you grab this vault right here. The reason this is the better way is because this wall, as you can see, blocks the killer's vision, so they can't tell for sure if you're going to vault. There is a bit of a mind game here, however, because you can't tell for sure if they're going to double back either, so make sure to use this cautiously. Once you either get the vault or fake the vault, you basically just want to stay on the opposite side of the wall from the killer. A lot of times they will vault to cut you off, and if they catch you, you'll have to go for the pallet, which is something you have to keep in mind at all times when running this gym. If you do get some freedom and some distance, you can try to get greedy and go for the window vault or window fake again, but most of the time I find myself getting 1 to 2 vaults out of this and sort of being forced to the pallet. There are also short wall gyms, where the wall is typically an L shape. You run these mostly the same way, but you should have an easier time fast vaulting. So essentially the game plan here is you run up, vault. I like to fake to the left to push them this way so I can potentially get more out of it. And then you have kind of a similar 50-50 to the Tnl wall, where you can vault and gain distance, or you can vault and the killer will double back, so you can consider the same sort of fake play, or maybe wait a half second if you have enough distance. If they push to the right instead, you'll pretty much be forced to either use the pallet, or you might be able to squeeze out another loop getting to the window, but you might be pushing it. You'll have to sort of judge the distance there. Last and certainly least, we have pallet gyms. These are structures on the map with nothing but a single pallet, and some big walls around it just for the aesthetic, or to fool you into thinking it's a better structure. Pallet looping is really all you have here, and the tall walls will make it easier for the killer to moonwalk and mind game you. So yeah, really not much to say here. Just run in a circle until the killer gets close, and then drop it on them. And wait for them to break it, because once the pallet is dropped, it is much stronger, but most killers will just break it and move on. The rest of the tiles are pretty map specific, so this is where experience is going to be your best friend. Try to take every chase as a learning experience and focus on improving the amount of time you can loop before going down. Work on your movement and camera control, hug every wall you loop around, and be sure to keep fast vaulting in mind at all times. Try to conserve pallets and be sure not to waste them if you're going to get hit anyway. Remember, your main goal is to waste as much time as possible. It's okay to go down and take hooks. It's practically inevitable if the killer has intense enough tunnel vision on you. Hopefully this video has given you some things to think about, so you can start improving on your looping game right away. If you have any additional tips or pointers, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for choosing Shmolty for your looping needs. Be sure to follow me on Twitch, where you can see me fail to follow my own advice live on stream. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more dumb videos like this. I'll see you next time.